TJ the Wheel Joe coming at you live. It is Tuesday, November the 11th, 10:07 a.m. Central Time, Texas time. Hopefully we got a better layout today. Yay, I see it in the back. I think we're good. Tell me we're good on the layout, guys, because what happened is I had it on portrait and not landscape. So that was the issue. So anyway, guys, we're going to do an episode of Technically Speaking. Let me see if I can get a little more centered here on the camera. It's just I have the computer set up so that I can kind of see the TV with my peripheral vision to make sure that I'm showing you all the right stuff. But anyway, we're going to do an episode of Technically Speaking where I go through all the positions that I have open with UZI, and then he kind of gives me the gimmies and the gotchas from a technical perspective. And then I'll be looking at, well, how much is the company worth at those levels? Because obviously the unlimited risk is always to the upside. So anyway, without further ado, let's bring on UZI Options. How are you, my man?
TJ, how you been? I'm doing well, my friend. Thank you.
I'm doing good. I'm down over 20 pounds in 5 weeks.
Nice.
I don't know that I can really tell the difference. I mean, maybe if I go look at other videos, I feel like I can tell the difference, but I feel better.
I can see it in your face. Yeah, I haven't seen you in a while. I can see it in your face. Definitely.
Yeah, I feel better, and I feel like I got another 15 pounds in me by the end of the year. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more. But I'm taking it 2-3 pounds a week. That's the goal. 2 to 3 pounds a week. I'm happy with a pound a week, right? I mean, just guys, do the math. Let's do the math real quick. A pound a week in a year is 50 pounds, right? You take 2 weeks off for the holidays. You know what I'm saying? So if you're on a journey and you're extremely overweight the way that I was, and you're like, man, like I need a lifestyle change. It doesn't matter where you're at, how fat you are, how obese you are, whatever the terminology you want to use. 50 pounds, you're like a whole new person. So if you just get on this caloric deficit, ultimately you're going to have to be in a caloric deficit, figure out what your resting metabolic rate is, right? Like your sedentary lifestyle for breathing. God's going to allow you to burn a certain amount of calories just for being alive and breathing. So you got to figure out what that level is, and then you need to go count your calories. So let's just say your sedentary burn rate or whatever, your resting metabolic rate is going to allow you to burn 2,200 calories. So you need to create a caloric deficit of about 300 to 500 calories per week, so that you can, or per day, so they could tally up to about 3,500 calories, because a pound of fat is about 3,500 calories, not to get all nerdy with it, right? So that's the idea. Like slow and steady is better than losing a bunch of weight. If you lose a bunch of weight early, I promise you there's water involved. I promise you there's muscle involved, because it is almost impossible to lose more than 1 to 2 pounds of fat per week. It's just that's just not the way the body's designed, unless you're going to go do liposuction or something like that. UZI, I know you have a lot of experience in the gym and training. Do you want to educate them a little bit on that, and then we're going to get on track? Because I know there's a lot of people out here that are struggling the way that I was struggling, and I'm still struggling because I'm not nowhere near my goal. But they just they don't know what to do. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you, I've been working out steady though for a while, but I didn't start seeing results again until I got serious about my diet. They say abs start in the kitchen. I think it's even before that. I think they start at the grocery store.
Yeah, looking good. Looking good is 90%, not diet, let's say dieting. I shouldn't say dieting, but it is your diet and what you consume. And 10 more, maybe, the numbers are a little bit, maybe 90 is 85 or not, 85, 15, but whatever it is, it's majority is what you do when you're not in the gym, how you eat, and then how you rest. And it's all about the nutrition that you do take in. You need ample protein, whether you're looking to gain muscle or even lose weight. You don't want to lose muscle, so you want to make sure your protein levels are high. Good chicken, fish, meat, whatever you like, for beans if you're a vegetarian. good carbohydrates like vegetables, sweet potatoes, oatmeal, and some good fats like nuts, olive oil, fish oil supplements, flaxseed oil. I mean, all the stuff that you do see advertised, but you don't have to spend a fortune. You can definitely get it online, Amazon, Walmart, wherever you want to find, get your products. But health, health is, if you're healthy, body, mind, your trading will be much better. It's just, they go hand in hand, because if you feel great, you think differently. And I mean, TJ, you're looking real skinny. Now that I look at you more, you're getting thin, man. Don't get too skinny. Don't get too thin.
Well, I'm still definitely overweight for my height. I weigh about 225 pounds right now. My immediate or intermediate target is 200 pounds. 198 actually, because there's a powerlifting weight class that's 198. Because I want to sign up for a meet, because I was just like looking at stuff online a few months ago, and I came across these records of like bench press, deadlift, and squat for 50-year-old men. Mm-hmm. at specifically the 181 pound weight class, but the 181 pound weight class isn't really attainable for me right now, but the 198 pound weight class is. And I was like, I think I could break two of the three. I think I could break the squat and I could break the deadlift. The bench, I've never been a real big bencher. So I want to do a dedicated meet for bench to see how much I could bench if I'm not tired from squatting, right? And then I want to do what's called the push-pull, where you do the bench and the deadlift. And then if I can get into a routine again with squats, we'll see. If not, I may just pursue a few comeback meets with bench and deadlift, and then I'll just use the bench to kind of warm me up for the deadlift. And I want to like go break all the records in deadlift. I've always had a pretty monster pull, so nice. But it motivates me to get to the weight, if that makes sense, because I'm like goal oriented. In case you haven't figured it out, like the way that I trade options, it's all about goals, right? So I'm goal oriented, so I need to have like that carrot, like that thing that I'm chasing, if that makes sense. So anyway, let's get into it. Uzi, I've got a lot of positions on here, and we'll go over the ones that maybe you're familiar with, and we'll go from there. So let me get this going here. You guys should be able to see that, but I'm going to switch over to this side so that it's a little bit bigger for everyone. So you guys should be able to see the Tasty Trade account, but in white. Give me a thumbs up if you guys can all see that.
Yep, good.
Can you see that? Awesome. So we're going to get into it. Uzi, I'm going to take it from the top. I've got it on days to expiration. I'm going to take it from the top. I don't know if you've charted BM&R before. The big
I did.
So let me just kind of tell you what I have. We'll show this screen. And then if you want to get your chart ready, I'll switch over to your side of the house. Yeah. But essentially what I got is I got 50,000 shares, guys, at the average cost is like 53. It doesn't show it on here, but the average cost is 53 and some change. And I've got 500 covered calls at 50 for next Friday, 10 days from now, doing pretty good on that particular position. And then I've got 800 leaps at 75 bucks. So if you're wondering, well, why would I be willing to sell the shares at 50 when I bought them for 53, is because the idea is I know that I could roll this position, A. B, I had the participation trophy set to the upside already. So I've already bought a bunch of insurance to the upside. If this thing does a moonshot to the upside, it ain't going to the moon without me. It's like, we're in the ambulance. They may not be taking us to the hospital, but we're in the ambulance. so we are in the ambulance. We paid for that participation trophy, and right now we're bleeding out, right? I mean, we're down 649,000 on the shares. We're down 413,000 on the leap. So we're down over $1 million between the shares and the leaps, but our year-to-date's negative 757,000. How does that happen? It's because it's taken into consideration all the covered call premiums that have been received. because I'm
See,
not
that's
just
what I like about Tasty Trade. Tasty Trade will do all that for you.
so
Right?
awesome. So
Yeah.
awesome.
I got to admit, I use Thinkorswim, and that doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything like that for you. You have to go back and figure it all out, and it just takes time. But yeah,
Guys,
I like
Tasty Trade made the wheel tracker obsolete for me. I was like,
Yeah,
I don't need it. Any
remember that
metric
wheel
that I
tracker.
need, I could find it. Any metric that I need, I can find it on Tasty Trade. And if I can't find it, I call the trade desk and they'll put the report that I need together and shoot it over to me via email. So I'm just like, dude, I was just now I can focus on trading. I don't have to be an accountant anymore. You know what I mean?
100%.
Look, it freed up my mind, man. It really, really freed up my mind. So anyway, are you able to pull up the chart? I could X out of here and share your chart on the screen.
Yeah. Let me share. Let me get my share screen going here.
Okay, so let me get going here. So we're gonna go back and forth. It's gonna be a little bit messy. Bear with me, guys. But it's just so that we could I could show the position here. I don't have end phase at the moment, but it's coming. I just needed to make some room financially for to load up on some more shares of BMNR and to load up on AST. So I had to make some tough decisions. I had a real nice clean spark strangle on an inch phase as well. And those are coming on soon now that I see how the portfolio is a lot more balanced. I have more wiggle room to bring some positions that I'm excited about back onto the fold. Let's see. What do we got here? Uzi, talk to us.
Yeah, so this pattern that's sitting here right now, these two trend lines, they're from when we did meet last time. I've left them on.
Right.
This was a sort of a symmetrical triangle. It's not an ascending triangle, but it was a triangle that we were looking at because we had price coming. I don't know. We were probably talking somewhere around here when we were speaking last time, and it was due to break, either way, and it broke to the downside. Not only did it break to the downside, it retested it once here, which completely failed. And then it tried to get back to the triangle in this area here, and it failed again. So that's when it just sank to the levels that it's at now, which is in about the mid 30s. Maybe it's at 30. It's at 40 today. But it definitely failed from this triangle that we were hoping would shoot it higher and maybe take on these previous all-time highs, of over 150, 160 bucks. So it definitely has failed. Now, what it's doing right now is it's looking to carve out a potential higher. So let me just get my marker here. A higher low, because we have this low here. Okay, we do have this second low, a higher low here, but it's taken that out when it broke this trend line here.
All right.
So right now it's in the midst of trying to fix itself. This is actually a good sign. It broke below, so we have new shorts that wanted to get in, and they think that they're going to ride it lower. They're all selling it as it breaks this trend line. Well, I shouldn't say they're all. They may be short from up here, but they're adding on as soon as it breaks this pivot over here. They're now stuck because on the very next candle day we have not a hammer, but definitely a bull candle that shook, that it now has been shaking them, because now price is back above that trend line. So this is actually a good sign. If we can stay above this trend line and now just kind of trade sideways like this, it'll do a nice, base action where it can try to get some new buyers to come in. Maybe Tom Lee's predictions will start to kick in toward the end of the year, and we can get more of a cupping pattern and not continue this nasty, downtrend, because it's definitely now in a downtrend. Okay, until it can get over this trend line, it's still in a downtrend, and the downtrend is starting to take on, let's say, a steeper angle. So we needed to get above this area here, come back, test it a little bit, and then start to make its way higher, get up to this trend line, penetrate it, and then let that now serve as a new form of support. That's what we're looking for here with BMNR. Now, right now, all bets are off the table because it's broken trend. It can't get it really itself back in order. And volume, the volume patterns is just, it's basically, it's abysmal, meaning, there's no interest here right now from the long side. This is a technical bounce because of this this prior pivot. So it's just a technical bounce. It needs to prove itself now that this is definitely a double bottom, because this could be a double bottom in the making. Double bottom, and then we can start to maybe head, like I said, up in this direction here. But as of now, it's suffering along with with Bitcoin and ETH. I'm just going to pull up ETH for a quick second. Well, this is ETH A. A little similar, but ETH A is actually in a worse position because it took out this area here, and it can't get back above it. It fell through here, right here, took it out. It's bounced back to it, but it can't get over it. So that needs to get over its trend line that we're looking at here. So I just wanted to do a quick comparison. But now BMNR, I know we talked about you making $1 million by January. I think it was January. Yeah. I don't know how this is going to work between now and January. We do have 2 months. Well, month and change, month and a half, let's say. I mean, if Bitcoin reignites and Tom Lee's army can get going, maybe we can see a resurgence in Bitcoin. But for now, let me just remove this. For now, Bitcoin is taking it on the chin too. It's taken out this pretty solid support area that lasted for 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 attempts to get through it, and now it's fallen below it, and it's retesting it, and it's failing. So right. Bitcoin is definitely on the ropes, if you want to say, if you follow boxing, it's on the ropes, and it's got to try to prove itself. It's right at the 200-day moving average. Okay, we can see that right here. This orange moving average is the 200-day moving average. So it's in a battle between the 200-day moving average and what was once support trend line is now serving as resistance. So this is all technical analysis, 101. Good thing surges.
What about Ethereum? Because BMNR is tied to Ethereum. Because BMNR is an Ethereum treasury, right? This is important for MicroStrategy, but I think as goes Bitcoin goes Ethereum, right? In my mind, I don't think there's I don't think that I feel like
I would have to agree.
Bitcoin is still the head of the class, if you will, right? And I think that everything's going to follow Bitcoin. If Bitcoin doesn't move, I don't think all coins are going to have a season, but I could be wrong, right? I don't follow all those other shit coins that much, to be honest with you. The only ones that I've ever really followed are Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then for a short minute Doge, because I was just trying to swing trade Doge and make money. Other than that, I've never really followed like the Solanas, or I had a position in XRP early on, and then that whole thing happened with the DOJ, and I was like, dude, this thing's going to take forever. So I just kind of got out of that whole thing. But what's Ethereum doing? What do you think? Tom Lee has some crazy predictions on Ethereum by the end of the year. I think it's something like 7,000 to 12,000. I can see a world where it can go to like 5,000 or 5,500, but past that, I can't see that far in the distance, right? This is where I'm like stop sign to stop sign, selling from expiration date to expiration date, and Tom Lee has like the map, 1,000 miles ahead. Right? So this is why he's Tom Lee.
Yeah, so Ethereum, Bitcoin, BMNR, they all have this similar type of a thing, right? We've got a rounding top. I mean, what this indicates, this rounding top, is that every time price tried to break out to new highs, previous owners in the shares were looking to get out at break even. That's what this indicates. Then it got down to where it should have held up on support from prior areas here and even an area here, because while they tried to sell it off here, it found support below before it ever had to get to the trend line. So that was a showing of strength right here. Unfortunately, once it got back up to its prior highs, it failed right here. So when we have a rounding top, it's indicative that previous owners that are trying to get out at break even, they've lost faith. They're getting out. It creates this rounding top. Now we're back at the support area. It couldn't hold it right here. It broke it. The only thing that held it was the 200-day moving average. So again, these are very similar. Bitcoin, Ethereum, BMNR, ETH, you know, they have the same look. They have to not only hold the 200-day, they have to get above this trend line, this support trend, which was once support. It's now resistance. It's got to get back to support and then start to work its way up. Problem is, you've got all these, you know, previous owners that are, you know, been looking to get out. Let's hope they're all out, because if they are, what I've also found in the many years of trading is that anytime you see a pattern like this, which is clearly bearish, if this fails, meaning if bears fail to push this below the 200-day, that's when you can get a rocket that just lights them all up. Anyone who's been short, and then the ones who had gotten out, see that it is now heading north and going higher, which is what they wanted to begin with. That adds fuel to the fire. So if this pattern fails on them, the bears, then we could see this explode. As far as this would be ETH, and everything else would follow along. Meaning, you know, maybe BMNR, but the driver is probably Bitcoin, right? The driver is probably Bitcoin, and this is Bitcoin right here. This is Bitcoin futures, but it's the proxy for you know, for Bitcoin. So again, same. Maybe off a little bit there. Let me just erase that. But they're all in the same boat. They've got to get back above. So Bitcoin actually broke the 200-day, and it's in a fight. It's got to stay above that 200. Now, again, I'm not a big Bitcoin follower either, but there is something called that Bitcoin winter or something where it's not, it's the same thing as a stock that's, you know, getting sold off, and it's in a bear market, you know. The question is where would things go if they start to break to the downside? Let me just get this tool up in here. Where are we here? So if it breaks that, yeah, I mean, the next area of support would be mostly like in this area here. And that lines up with just under 100,000, between 95 and 100,000. But again, now you're going to be having a couple of other technical things happening. A 50-day moving average heading south toward, and also heading south of 200-day moving average. And we don't want to see that 50 cross to 200, because that would be what's called the death cross in technical terms.
Right.
So there's a lot going on with these charts. It's not over yet, but, you know, it's like, you know, Rocky, and, you know, he's bleeding, and he's got one arm dragging, and he's fighting for his life at the 200-day moving average. Got to make that strong and get above that 50-day, especially for Bitcoin.
Right. So let's pivot to MSTR, because I've been saying that I think that it's easier to make $1 million with MSTR than it is with BMNR, just by running a strangle. So right now what I have, Uzi, is I have 800 short puts at 215, and I've got 1,600 short calls at 350, 38 days to expiration, December the 19th. There's $1.2 million of extrinsic value on this trade. And my year-to-date's already 185,000 on MicroStrategy or strategy. So as long as MicroStrategy cruises between 215 and 350, even for the next month, don't need to stay in it for the whole 38 days, I would be up $1 million year-to-date on strategy. And it just has to cruise between 215 and 350. I think that has a much higher likeliness or likelihood of happening versus like what I need to happen with BMNR to make $1 million, guys, is BMNR needs to go to like $75 by the end of the year. That's the reality, right? And I can't be in a situation where I got caught with covered calls either. So obviously I'm in the driver's seat on the covered calls. I'm up 54% on the covered calls on BMNR at the moment. They expire in 10 days. So that's a nothing burger. But on MSTR, all I need is the range. I've got 800 puts at 215 that have $940,000 of extrinsic value attached to them. And I've got 1,600 short calls at 350 that have $312,000 of extrinsic value attached to them. So what does the chart say, Uzi? How are we looking?
Let me add those levels onto the chart, because that's going to be nice to take. So that's 350. Forget about the change, 22. That'll just take more time.
And 215.
And then 250. All right, let's get it close. There we go. Right about right about there. Okay. So just in the interest of time, I'm not going to put these exact 215, but it's close enough. So the good news and bad news. Okay, bad news. Bad news. We did have a bear cross. I'm sorry, a death cross, the 50-day cross to the 200-day on this day here, which looks like it's about the end of September. And price has acted accordingly. It's been it's staying in a downtrend. Now, these trend lines are on this chart because we had a position on the Discord where we sold a call credit spread and something else. And it actually shot through this. Okay, so let me back up. Price was trading within this channel here. We can see that for a while it was respecting this channel. Okay, we sold, I think, call credit spreads right around here. It shot up against us right to the moving averages and then backed off, and we closed them for profits here. But the point is, what I'm trying to say is this channel I left on here, and you can see price is now back near that channel. And then below this trend line, which supports the lower sections. So when you can connect the lower portions of swing lows, and then price penetrates that to the downside. This is getting a little extra technical here, but once it penetrates back inside here, and now it can't get back above this trend line here, I'm talking about right there. This is super bearish. On top of that, we do have the 200-day now, which is curling down. The 50-day, which is curling down. We already had the bearish death cross, like I mentioned. So strong downtrend with not much support. Let me zoom out so we can see where support comes in. So this white trend line is the most solid support it really has, and that's what it's toying with right now. So again, if this breaks, then we don't really have much to go on for support because it's already below the major moving averages. That's not going to catch it. If this area here, which has been solid for it, breaks, which is about the 235 area, let's say.
Right.
And we're looking, let me zoom out a little bit more to bring in where the next area could come into play. It would be right around the 182 to 185 area. And we're getting that right from around this area here. Okay, so it's got from 235 to 185 is 50 points. We're looking at maybe 50 points to the downside. And it could go quick, right? Because MSTR, if this gives out, it's gonna be a fast move down to this area. I mean, it's just no support. It's kind of like a vacuum. So in my opinion, 185 would be the next area where nibbling, if you wanted to add to a long, if you're in MSTR strategy, if you want to initiate a new position, or if you're looking to maybe put on a 30-day to 60-day trade now, you can maybe sell some puts in that area and not have to worry that, if it comes to that area, you'll take assignment because you're probably going to get pretty good premium for that.
Right. So based on what you're saying, Uzi, I was looking at the same thing. And that's why I have 800 puts versus 1,600 calls, because whenever I sell a strangle, there's always an easy side versus a hard side in my mind. And I felt like the easy side was the 350. Like I was like, a lot of things have to go right for MicroStrategy to get back up to 350 right now. Because initially I had them at 400. And I lowered them from 400 to 350, and I collected a lot of premiums. So the idea for me is, if it starts breaking more to the upside, to the downside, I'm going to lower the 1,600 calls from 350 to 300, and I'm going to collect a shitload of premium, and that's going to allow me to lower the 215 puts to 200, because I think that 200 might be a psychological level for MicroStrategy. Sure. So yeah. I'm like, maybe I'll be able to hold on just by doing that. And then if not, because I have more kids on the seesaw on the call side versus the put side, lowering the strike from the call is going to yield me so much premium that I could easily go from 215 to 200 to 185, and I can use all the credits from the calls to finance the debits on the puts. In other words, I'm able to move the goalposts as long as it isn't tanked to like 150. Then I'm not able to do it on the same expiration date. I might have to go further out in time
Mm-hmm.
so that I have that time equity that's going to be added to the contract, right? Because contracts consist of time and money. So that's my game plan. Is like I feel like I can manage it quite easily to the downside because at some point it's going to find a bottom. A, B, I have a lot of calls that are going to be printing money for me here. And so because I got a 2-to-1 ratio right on the calls versus the puts. So we're just playing a game of prevent defense, man. We got the lead, but we're trying to hold on. But every week that goes by, that's a lot of extrinsic value that comes off the contract. So I'm just like, dude, if this thing just holds on, I might be able to exit this trade with 40-50% profit and trim it, maybe get rid of 400 of the puts and keep my calls because that's the easy money. And then I can squeeze more premiums by lowering the strike on the calls. And then I might have like 400 puts versus the 1600 calls. So 4-to-1 ratio eventually. So there's a lot of managing going on here in my mind, right? But right now I'm just kind of sitting tight, doing nothing. It going sideways for a week is like a kind of a best case scenario for me right now. If it trends up $5, even better, right?
Yeah. I just noticed two other things I want to tell you, though, TJ, too. So from the RSI standpoint, right? What I've come to notice here,
it's getting pretty over.
The RSI is 33. Now, one thing you want to notice is that MSTR, if you go back all the way to April of 2023, which is what I'm looking at here, it does not like to get below, except maybe right here. It does not like to get into oversold territory. So you're right at about the level where it starts to bounce. So that's nice. Then when we look at the MACD, and again, I'm not a big MACD guy, but one thing I do like about the MACD is this. Let me just open this up so we can see it clearer. Is fading to the downside. Momentum is starting to fade. We've got this histogram, something I look at. The histogram is beginning to now wane, so it's getting better for the bullish side of things. The momentum to the downside is failing, is what I'm trying to say. So that's a good thing. So the RSI, being that it doesn't like to necessarily get to that oversold or in the oversold territory in bounces prior, is good. The MACD histogram is looking pretty good. It just needs to stay now and find this support again at this this trend line. I'm trying to open back up quick here. Get above this trend line here, right here, and then it can start to get constructive again and start to move higher. Again, like I said, though, this is tied to Bitcoin. Everything that's going to happen with Bitcoin and is going to tie into Master, MSTR, and the others, BMNR, ETH. So those are two good positive technicals that, while it's looking like it could just fall apart, that doesn't mean it's going to. It's not over yet, but it needs to fix itself, fairly soon.
Absolutely. Well, let's bring on the cool kid in town. We got SoFi. I've got another. I feel like Britney Spears. Oops, I did it again. I said I wasn't going to do it. I lied. I'm sorry, Will Donation. I lied. I said I wasn't going to do 5,000 strangles no more because it was bad for my blood pressure last time. But then I also looked up and I was like, well, I made $1.6 million in 90 days. I'll go take some lisinopril. You know what I'm saying? So here we are again. I've got yet another 5,000 strangle, 5,000 contracts. I got 5,000 puts at 29 short puts. So this is an agreement to buy 500,000 shares of SoFi at $29, 24 days from now. There's $690,000 of extrinsic value tied to this contract. Why do I say extrinsic value? Because that's the time value plus the implied volatility, and it's all extrinsic value when it's out of the money.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have an agreement to buy the shares at 29. They're currently trading for $30.20. So it's all extrinsic value. It's all out of the money. And then I've also got an agreement to sell the 500,000 shares at 36. So that creates what's called the sweet spot, right? So as long as SoFi trades between 29.01 and 35.99. That is the sweet spot. And I've got $225,000 of extrinsic value tied to the short calls. So there's $900,000 of extrinsic value on this contract that has to come out over the next 24 days. What do the charts say, Uzi? How we looking? How we looking? At 36, the reason that I put 36, it has nothing to do with the technical level. I didn't even look at the fibs. I didn't do any of that stuff. It was valuation. I was like, what is the valuation of SoFi if it goes to $36 right now? And I was like, so is this SoFi Palantir? Like, what are we talking about here? Is this so hood? I mean, what are we talking about here? Because this valuation would start, it would be so ahead of its skis at that point for a company that's doing $950-60 billion or $1 million in revenue every 90 days. It's ahead of its skis. It's still, at the end of the day, it's a bank that has a very exciting technological component attached to it. But at the end of the day, at its core, it is a bank. So I'm pretty confident on the call side. That being said, I'll manage it to the upside, or I am in a situation where I could potentially just cover and turn it into a covered strangle as well. I just got to free up some more monies. We got a couple $1 million on standby that we can send to Tasty Trade as well. So that's always nice. Ace up our sleeves as well. So what did the technicals say, Uzi? Take us home.
Sure. Since I already have the fibs on, let's start right there, and then I'll start from the beginning. But it's funny that you said you didn't even look at the technicals, because your strike at 26 lines up almost identical with the
29. The 29.
Oh, 29.
Yeah.
I think
so mind you, I started at 27 because I did look at the fibs for when I did my short put.
Okay.
But then SoFi kept trending up. I didn't have any calls yet. And I was like, let me go squeeze more on these puts, because again, there's an easy side and there's a hard side. I felt like the short puts was the easy side of the trade because we just got the answers to the test. They put out amazing earnings, right? Like SoFi, Palantir, and Hood all had basically the best earnings in company history not so long ago. So I was like, I feel like they're going to have a real nice base at 25, 26, but I wanted to take a calculated gamble because crypto's coming, more rate cuts are coming. Santa Claus is coming to town. I think that SoFi could go to 30, 31, 32. So let me make more money on the put premium, and then I'll put the call side on, right? And then I want to follow it up. Like I'm going to go from 29 to 30, 31, 32, because I'm going to stay in this trade for the next 3 to 5 years, if not longer. So I think that there's a real solid base here at 25 or 26 bucks. But what does Uzi have to say? What does the chart say? That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It just had, so it had its earnings, which they did very well, right? Yes. It tried to break out, which failed. Then we had a little bit of market weakness, and it followed right along with the market. This nasty red candle day was that sell-off that we had. I think it was maybe Thursday of last week or something like that. And then Friday, when we had the whole market turn around, SoFi did a beautiful thing technically. It came down to its 61.8 Fibonacci retracement level, which is the gold. That's considered the golden level, meaning if you want to stay in an uptrend, you want to hold that. That if you're going to pull back and you want to hold that 61.8, which it did, like a champ. From that point on, I know the market's been helping, but from that point on, it's been right back in the swing of things, getting right back into its cluster of trading. It's strong. The volume pattern is very bullish. So just from a Fibonacci looking level, everything is intact for a continued uptrend, in my opinion. Again, we can't take into consideration what might happen with geopolitical changes and with the government and stuff. But from technicals, the Fibonacci's have done their job, and everything looks good there. Then let's take a look at the trend line analysis. So we've got this area here, which was penetrated on this nasty sell-off, has now been overtaken again to the bull side. So that's good. Remember we talked about it with BMNR and Bitcoin and the others. If it gets below that trend line, it's got to get there quick, right back over that trend line quick. You don't want to see it spend a lot of time below, because any longs that are hoping for it to come back are going to start to sell out, I should say. The shorts are going to start to pile in, and then, gravity starts to take hold. So trend lines analysis is great. It did penetrate it, but it's right back over it, so it's still intact. That's good. It's actually got not a parallel channel going on here, but a price channel that it's now looks like it's going to try to stay within until a new catalyst can drive it out of. But this is what I would kind of think is going to happen now with price, unless something changes to break it again. But I think it's going to stay in this pattern and trend higher like this. It may do a little bit of a pullback, but head back up. There's no reason for it to sell off. Everything is good as far as the technicals, as far as the fundamentals that was just announced by the CEO during the conference call. So as far as that's concerned, everything's looking good there. You've got moving averages that are stacked just beautifully. You've got the 200-day moving average down below. Price has been hovering and retesting the 50-day moving average on numerous occasions, and it's not too far extended from that. So that's a great sign. It can, when you have stacked moving averages like this, you have less than a 45-degree angle on the 200-day. You have about a 45-degree angle. I might be off by a little bit on the 50-day. This is the kind of pattern that can be sustained for a very long time. So we could see SoFi in a year or two at 100 plus if it continues on this trajectory and things go well, fundamentally. But you have the moving averages stacked nicely, and you have the 8 and the 21 doing exactly what they're supposed to do, and that is, dance with each other. So that when I say that, I mean, the 8 is in blue, the 21 is in pink. Let's call it pink. Every time they get near each other, they kiss, and the blue line says the 8 moving average says, "I'll see you in a little while," and starts to take off and move away from the 21. But every so often it comes back and greets it, but it stays above it. This is huge. This is the type of bullish trend that Palantir has had. NVIDIA had when it was on its strong run up, all of the big Apple when it was running, all these big names. So this is as good as it gets right here. Now that's the daily. Let's just take a quick look at the weekly. The weekly looks like it might be a little bit of extended, but it did have this pullback here, which was last week. And even though it was a harsh selling event, it didn't penetrate this pullback that we had. And I don't know what the occurrence was here. I don't know what was going on at this particular time for this pullback here. Okay, but it didn't take out those lows. Okay, and once it got, if you notice, the blue, which is still the 8, but it's on the weekly. Once it penetrated, we had this long wick where it flushed out all the weak hands, caught the shorts, and now it's back above. So it's looking great. Now it's also within the Bollinger Bands. So it's not even, running right up and through the top Bollinger Band. So again, this is respecting the Bollinger Bands. All the moving averages are being well respected. And even on a weekly, it looks great. I mean, let's take a quick look at the monthly. Why not, right? Let's see, I got to go a little bit longer in time. Let's go. It doesn't really have much. Okay, there isn't a lot of history because Hood isn't. I mean, SoFi hasn't been around that long monthly wise to go back, but it's definitely in the stratosphere. So on a monthly, I wouldn't doubt if we get a little bit of a sideways action, maybe going into the new year, but it can still trend positively. I mean, this is a little bit of an extension here. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months of just straight up. I mean, to sustain that would be a little bit hard, but I'd like to see a little bit of sideways action now. So if we go back to the daily, let's hope we can get, this price action to stay intact, not break in any of these moving averages. Let's just go sideways for a couple of months, and then maybe in the new year start to take off. That would be great.
Yeah, I think that would be healthy. And the way that I put these trades together, it was all about the tranches for the stock-based compensation, or the performance stock units, I guess is what they're called. So SoFi needed to hold the $25 level for 90 days, and that happened about a week ago. And then if it gets to $35, it has to hold that level for 90 consecutive days. so that the management team qualifies for their second tranche. And then if it gets to $45, it has to hold that level for 90 days so that they can get their final tranche, which ends up being about $300 million worth for Anthony Noto via stock, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is, to me, whenever it got to 25, that became the base for me, and that's what started me selling these crazy strangles, or as far as like volume wise on SoFi, was because I feel like they're giving me the answers to the test, right? They're like, hey, it ain't gonna go under 35 or 25. It was the whole Charlie Munger thing. Show me the incentive and I'll show you the likely outcome, right? So these execs are financially incentivized for SoFi to stay above $25. And I think that if we get to 35, I think that it's going to get, that is going to form a new base for SoFi. And then if it gets to four, and it all has to happen by next March, guys, because in order for Anthony Noto to qualify for that $45 tranche, SoFi actually has to get there by next March, and it has to hold it for those 3 months because the performance stock units come due next June. So I don't know if they're going to get to the $45 tranche, but I can definitely see the $35 tranche. So I think sometime early January is when I feel, because again, there's like a lot of manipulation that happens with these stocks, guys, and I'm a believer in that. I feel like some people have a lot of information that we just don't have. You know, there's the Tom Sosnoff, he doesn't believe that to be true. There's Paper Gains, he doesn't believe that to be true. I'm like, that's cool. I believe that they do. I don't think that it's a coincidence that all these senators and congressmen, representatives, they all seem to get the right answers to the test all the time when it comes to investing, right? And they're the policymakers. So I'm just like calling a spade a spade. I think they have access to information that we don't have earlier, is what I'm saying. I think we all ultimately get access to the info, but it's the timing of the access to the info is what I'm saying. So anyway, this is just show me the incentive. I'll show you the result. Charlie Munger, right? That is why I decided on these levels for SoFi as my baseline. So right now I'm still holding that it's going to matriculate towards 35. I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but I just don't think that 36 is in the cards over the next 24 days. I just don't think that's going to happen. There's inclusion to the S&P that could be euphoric. I just don't think that SoFi is going to get included into the S&P right now when they already have Block, they already have Hood, they already have Coinbase, they already have a lot of financial technology companies in the S&P. So I just don't think that SoFi is quote unquote special enough to make the cut right now. I think it's probably 180 days away from that. And I'm extremely bullish on SoFi, but I'm also just calling a spade, you know, like give us a million quarter and members, give us even more guidance up, you know, a guidance raise, and give us well over $1 billion in quarterly revenue, and give us a top 5 deal for Galileo, because then now we can say, hey, there's a lot of technology going on with SoFi. It's not just a bank. So they could like kill that narrative as well. So I think those things happen. Then I think the S&P, you know, however that shit gets decided, because it's not just really based on market cap. I feel like there's a lot of politics involved. I think they'll be like, hey, this needs to be included with 500 of the largest companies in the world, right? This is what I think. Again, this is what makes a market. We all have an opinion, and we all put money based on those opinions. And you use the facts, the data sets that are available to you, and kind of go from there. What are you looking at there, Uzi? What is that? The call interest? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so this tells me where the biggest money is betting between now and the dates kind of you just mentioned, between now and like say 35, 40 days. They're betting anywhere between 30 and 33-ish is where most of the calls have been purchased or sold. So you can't tell if it's bought or sold, but you know, who would be selling calls unless you have a big position, you know, selling covered calls, and those don't usually represent the majority of calls in the marketplace. The majority of calls are usually by buyers of calls. So this is where they're betting between now and the next about 40 days, let's say, is between 30 and 33, and then you start to get a little bit of interest, about 35ish, and then maybe around 40. But these are the outliers. These are the gamblers. These are the ones that are putting on the lottos, right? The smarter money is betting about between 30 and 35 between now and about 40 days out.
Excuse me.
Sure. This is one thing I do like about what I have on Thinkorswim for you guys that are out there while TJ's away for a second. This is the market depth. You could find this in probably, places like maybe barchart.com, stock charts, places like that, maybe. But what's nice about it, I have it at my disposal with Thinkorswim, so it's right there to take a quick glance and see where is some of the big money sitting. And so your strikes at 36 look pretty good between now and then, according to what we see now.
Yeah. 24 days to expiration, guys. I think that I'll definitely hold on for at least 2 weeks, and I look up and I'm up 50-60%. I could easily just take the trade off and call life good, or I could roll to the next cycle and go to like 38, and just have a little bit more wiggle room to the upside as well if the market gets really euphoric and Santa Claus wants to come to town and all that stuff. Tom Lee's going to either be Santa or Grinch for us, right? Because there's a lot of people that have really big positions in BM&R right now.
Yeah, so, for sure. I don't know if you remember him, Tom. TJ, back in the day, there was a guy named Bludgett. What was his name? Henry Bludgett.
Okay.
He was back in like 2000, 2001. He was saying that all these tech stocks and the .com stocks are going to go to the moon. And he was actually indicted. He got indicted over this whole thing because he was paid to promote.
He was a pumper.
He was a pumper. And I'm just looking at Tom Lee, and I got to say, he reminds me of Henry Blodgett. And I'm not saying that he is. I'm not saying he's doing anything wrong, but he's just so bullish on everything. And he's been right. But I mean, at what point can this, bubble, or if you want to call it that, can this just AI, driven market, how long can it keep really going before there's going to be some type of, major pullback? Because there's all these companies are spending billions and billions of dollars on these agreements with other companies and corporations. And, where is AI really going to, I love AI, and I'm not here to trash AI, but AI is great. But how can it start to generate the revenues that we're talking about? Because we're going to start losing companies. Like, look at Adobe. Some of these companies that have been making their money on creating things that you can't create anywhere else. Now AI does it in seconds. So there's going to be some winners and some losers going forward. I don't know how it's going to play out.
Agreed. Well, let's do a couple more. I've got a really, really big strangle on Palantir. So I've got 350 short puts at 160. 60. This is 66 days out. And then I've got 700 short calls at 260. So I got 100 wide runway on Palantir that says I feel like Palantir is going to trade between 160 and 260 for the next 66 days. There's $374,000 of extrinsic value attached to this particular trade. I'm already up $13,465 on this particular trade, up $471,000 on Palantir for the year. So this would put us at about, 750 or so. Now, granted, it wouldn't all happen by the end of this year because this doesn't expire until January 16th of 2026. But the cash register keeps ringing, if you will. What does the chart say, Uzi? Because I know Palantir's had a meteoric rise. I think it touched 200 for a while. And the reason that I chose 260 was because Palantir does about $1.1 billion of revenue per quarter. They got about $8 billion in the kitty. Like, that's how much all of their contracts are worth, give or take. So I was like, I just don't see a world where, I couldn't really see a world where Palantir should be trading at these levels, but we're not even in Mars at this point if it goes to 260 within the next 66 days, because that's going to be that's going to be before their next earnings as well. So they're not going to have like that catalyst either. Yes, they're going to be able to announce some deals and stuff, but they're not going to be able to have the big rah-rah session that could somehow get them to 260 over the next 66 days. So that's the easy side of the trade in my mind, and that's why I have 700 contracts. I think that the more delicate side is the puts at 160, because even at 160 you could argue that the valuation is extremely stretched on Palantir. But what do the charts say? This is just what I think. What do the charts say, though?
Yeah, so you just went through some of the fundies, and I'm not a fundamental guy, really. I'll look at them every now and then, but from the technicals, I mean, Palantir is still looking good. I mean, it tried to make just a monster bull run, but it did fail right after earnings. Even though earnings,
amazing,
were amazing, right? The market sometimes will sell the news, because if it's so amazing, the big money says, okay, well, how much more amazing can it get to sustain the position I'm in? And I have, the end of the year coming. I don't want to lose my profits for my clients. So, let me take some profits. So you start to get a little bit of selling, and then selling begets selling. And then you break a moving average like the 8, which is in blue here. And then you get more selling, and then you get to the 50-day. And now some of the bigger money is saying, wait a second. Now it's getting into my area. I'm a 50-day moving average money manager. Let me get some. And it also comes right down to the lower Bollinger Band. So this was a nice scoop up by some big money, most likely saying, hey, I want to own this at the 50-day moving average. I don't have VWAP on my chart, and I won't add it now just for the sake of time. But I would have to say that VWAP is probably right around here too, because look at all the time that it spent trading in here, forming this solid support trend line. Okay, we had a cup and handle. I mean, this is actually a longer handle than I like to see, but it did serve as a cup and a handle, and we did get the break to the upside and not to the downside, which is good. Now, what was I going to say? On the pullback, one thing I want to note about the pullback is that from the swing high of the all-time high, 207, it pulled back to only the 50% fib. I'm sorry, 50. That's a 61. Let me just get this over here. Yeah, so the 50%, no, that's a 38, 50. Yeah, here's the 61 right here. Here's the 50. So it didn't even make it to the 61. It made it to the 50% retracement. So this is still a strong trend, and it's back above not only the 38, which is this one here, but it's hovering right now at the 23. So even though Palantir suffered a pretty hard hit after earnings, it's still in a strong bull trend, okay? It's got the 200-day moving average at a beautiful angle, which is sustainable, like we talked about that before with SoFi. It's got a beautiful 50-day moving average angle, supportable, okay? And the moving averages are stacked just like SoFi. So this is still a bullish looking chart by all means, especially when all the things you just mentioned, from the Fibonacci's to the trend line support, moving averages. The RSI is only 53, so that's sustainable. It's not overheated. It's right basically in the middle. That's got room to go if it wants to start running up before it gets to any type of overbought area. Let's just take a quick look at the MACD. Let's see how the momentum is going. So even with MACD, we've got momentum is on the downside is starting to wane. I use that word again, wane. It's starting to get better, meaning these histogram levels are starting to get back to that 0 level. That's also a positive sign. So again, this looks like it just needs to go sideways a little bit longer. No negative market news or geopolitical news. The government's back open. If there's been any contract pauses because of the government being down, and they start to resume negotiations, maybe, or putting more contracts out, and Palantir is the recipient, that could get it to where it wants to go, which is there. Yeah, technically everything looks sound and solid, Palantir. Your strikes up 260 look pretty solid, because it's going to run into a little bit of overhead resistance once it starts to get near that 210 area, 205, 210.
Right.
Once it gets above that, though, then it'll start to make its move toward higher and higher levels. But by then you'll probably have cashed out of your calls or rolled them higher.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be very comfortable putting my entire bankroll that Palantir doesn't get to 260. Like,
Yeah, I mean, unless the government buys a portion of them too.
unless they just get some crazy ass $10 billion contracts or something, and then all bets are off. But at that point, okay, cool. I'm gonna roll this shit out and go to like 280, 300. Like I ain't gonna fight it. You know what I mean? And that's
I just
when
thought
the
of it.
it
I'm
doesn't
sorry. Go
matter.
ahead.
Like it's all good. I mean, I just don't think it's going to happen within the next 66 days. And this is the fun. This is price wars, right? You're just playing the range game. That's it. Like I don't have like my shares are at stake or anything of the sort because I'm not long Palantir. I'm just long on playing a range on Palantir because I couldn't justify owning these shares at these levels. And God bless each and every one of you guys that are still holding Palantir. You're better at holding than I am. I was not interested or willing to hold shares at that level because I wasn't willing to ride the shares back down. You know what I mean? I was like, I got to lock in this win. There's so much other money that I could go make. And then I figured out the range game with Palantir, and I'm like, well, I'm still ringing the cash register, and I had the stress of owning the shares. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
owning the shares of Palantir became stressful for me. So
So I won't name any names, but there's a member, there's a guest in the audience who owns Palantir from about $6 or $7, and they still own it. That's how
yeah,
strong of the conviction that trader has. I mean,
yeah.
it's made the person a fortune, and I'm very proud of that person. But I'll tell you,
Well,
man, I couldn't do it. I don't have that kind of fortitude.
yeah, my average was like 9 or so, something like that. Because I got assigned my first batch of shares at 1750, and then I averaged down. But I sold at like 80 to $90, and then I bought some leaps. I cashed out on those, and then I've been figuring out the range game since, and made quite a bit of money just doing the range game. And it's just, again, it's just like when I look at a ticker, guys, and what I want to teach you guys today is how can you make the most amount of money with this ticker while maintaining your sanity and being comfortable, right? Like whatever's
Mhm.
like if it's comfortable for this lady to own those shares, well, good for you. My I wasn't genetically wired that way. It just simply became uncomfortable for me. And I had a lot of conviction, but it was just I'm the old school valuation guy, right? Like I'm like, dude, this valuation's whack. I don't want to crash and burn with this stock. And I don't want to be the guy that oh, I used to have all these gains, but I didn't cash them out because I was
Mhm.
like, I need to lock in this win so that I could go sell puts and calls elsewhere. But anyway, one last one, dude, because I got a FaceTime starting at 11:30,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
did a
Oh,
I did a meta trade. I did a meta trade not too long ago. Again, this
mhm,
one's for January. I'm
mhm.
sorry, no, this one's for December the 19th. It's 50 puts at 550, 38 days from now. There's $20,000 of extrinsic value here. And then I've got versus 100 calls at 800 38 days from now. So I feel like the sentiment was kind of low on Meta because of the capex, and some people just don't like Mark or whatever. And then I was like, okay, 800, that puts it at like all-time highs. So I kind of like the 800. So I just put that one out there. A nice round number. Eight's my favorite number. So I went with 800 on the call, and I just determined in my mind that's the easy side of the trade. I'm already up $12,640 on this trade. There's another 34,000 of extrinsic value, so it just needs to cruise between 550 and 800, and I make another 34,000. And I'm just trying to orchestrate a trade that can make $100,000 a month eventually. So I'm going to have to add to the contracts, but I want to play it extremely wide. Why? Because Meta, Tesla, Amazon, Google, Nvidia, they all trade like fucking penny stocks now. So I have to
Yeah,
trade
they
them
do.
really, really wide because these are not your traditional blue chip companies. That stock market doesn't even exist right now. There's not a lot of Coca-Cola bellwethers out there, and even Coke has some action, right? AT&T, Verizon, even they had action here over the last year or two. So how does it look? 550 and 800. I don't even look at this trade, brother. Been in this trade for a couple of weeks now, and all it's doing is printing the easiest money that I can find in the stock market. I just don't think it's going to go to 800 in the next month or so. And if it goes to 550, now my mindset shifts to, hey, maybe I want to own some shares. You know what I'm saying? Because I could ride these up 100 points real quick. Because I think at 550, the move's like overdone to the downside in a really, really big way.
Yeah, I mean, you've definitely got a lot of positives in this chart. Even though this chart looks okay, this is an ugly looking chart, but for your positions, it's actually looking pretty damn good. I'll tell you why. So the first thing that kind of leaps onto my plate is we've got we had a gap here which was closed, so that's good. Check that off. That's been handled for you. You don't have to worry about it. Your strike's down at 550. Then we have another gap to fill. Let me just back that one up. That one didn't come out good. We do have a gap on the chart to fill right around here, but ironically, I'm telling you say you're not a technical person, but look at what you did. You've got to put right at that area, which is perfect, because now if those price does come here.
Dude, I study technicals a lot at 3 a.m, guys. I really do. I just don't. I feel like I don't know how to explain what I'm doing the way that you do. That's why I stay in my lane, if that makes sense, right? Let me bring the expert on. But I know exactly everything you're saying. I feel like I just can't communicate it. That's why I don't do my own segment. I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'll try, and then trying to do all those the way you go find the shit, bro. What I do is I print the chart and I start drawing on it with my hand. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how to pull all those tools the way you guys do.
Yeah, no. I like your whiteboard series too. The whiteboard series is good. That you've been doing on YouTube. So that's those are two big positives. This gap is filled for you, and if they do fill this gap, well then great, because you'll either get your shares or you'll just roll your puts down and take in another boatload of money until those expire. The negatives though is we've definitely taken out the 200-day moving average. That's not good, and we do have the 50-day, which is heading toward the 200. Now that doesn't mean it's going to be a death cross. There are many occurrences where it's where the 50-day moving average just comes down and threatens to penetrate but doesn't, and the 200-day kind of does one of these things, kind of moves and starts to move up. But what it's going to take for that to happen is for price improvement, right? So price needs to start getting like this so that these moving averages don't do the nasty and do a cross on it. Now price is definitely,
whenever the moving averages are already way above the current share price, that is the definition of a falling knife, correct?
It is. Yep, it's a falling knife. However, it's found some support in this area here, which for some reason is it's because of this cluster area here. We had a lot of buying here. I could add on the volume profile. Let me see. If I add on the volume profile, will that help us? Do I have it? Can I add the volume profile? I could add it quickly. Let me just add on volume profile. There it is. Study. Volume profile. All right. So this is adding on the volume profile just to see where the most concentration of volume took place along the way. And we can see that there's a thick cluster here, which that was the, so when price gapped through this area right here, it was doing so because of what? There was no way it was going to trade through this cluster, if you can see. So it gapped right through it. And then it's now being held up in this area of volume profile cluster here. So that's what's holding it up right now, is the massive amount of volume and traders and participants that that psychologically wanted to own it at this level, which kind of dates back to over here. So that's why technicals, they usually come into play. Previous areas over here can come into an area of support, let's say here. That's what's holding it up, and it filled the gap. So ideally, we don't want to see it go any lower. There is a gap here to fill, and I just noticed there's a small one here, but that's not to say this one needs to fill too. And time will tell if this one fills, but it definitely seems like it needed to fill this gap, which coincides though exactly with the previous area of high volume and interest. So if I remove these quickly, the two largest areas where traders were interested in owning this stock was up here and then down here, which is exactly where it is right now. So volume profile comes into play here. I don't really keep it on the chart all the time. It's annoying because it kind of skews the way everything else goes. But this is why it's being held up here. Now, this is actually a good sign because psychologically, buyers feel safe that this is a good area to now start positions or add to their already current positions, which would support maybe a sideways action, which would prevent the continued rollover and that death cross that we just talked about.
Right.
So I think you're good. I think the 550s won't get challenged, especially in the time frame you mentioned with your short with your cash secure puts.
Yeah, I thought that Santa would save me, and I just feel like 600's kind of like a psychological level for Meta, and then I think that 550 people just would have itchy trigger fingers because there's still a lot of money in money market funds that is not in the the active stock market, if you will. So
yeah,
I just feel like 550 gets really, really intriguing for people, especially when Meta was well over 700 not too long ago.
100%. Now, I agree. One last thing, we haven't done it. Let's just take a quick look from the Fibonacci standpoint. Where is price? Wow, look at that. I didn't do Fibonacci's on this trade on this chart until just now, but look from the low to the high. Look where price is sitting. 61.8.
Yeah, it's the most popular fib. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful buy. And that's another reason. So you have the volume nodes and you have the gap fill and you have the 61.8. This is a great spot for new entries right here if anyone's thinking about it, in my opinion. Price could go lower. This is not financial advice, but this is looking, the more technicals you add in, it's looking good. Looking good. And Meta, I would have never thought that Facebook, it starts out as Facebook and becomes what Meta has become. I mean, the stuff they have, those glasses that are like, you can record with these glasses. Someone I know has these things. I mean, the stuff they're putting out, the AI is just crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, man. It's pretty awesome. Well, Uzi, I appreciate you, man. I got to get rocking and rolling. I'm going to try to get some food in my stomach before my FaceTime start. Anyway, let's do this again. I'm getting more comfortable going public once or twice a week. So let's keep this going. I'm making a lot more progress on the book, so I feel like I'm in a better headspace. And then I also see that the majority of the members are on here, and I make sure to answer their questions as well. And I'm still doing plenty of members onlys as well. So the more progress I make on the book, the more I'm able to go live, because I feel like I'm not like falling behind, if you will. You know what I mean? I wish I had never said I was going to write this damn book, man. I'll tell you that. And then I'm already committing, and I haven't learned. I'm already committing to a second one because the way that I'm ending this first book, it's like a total cliffhanger. So I'm trying to like basically put out a series of like 2 to 3 books. TJ the Will Deal, Manufacturing the Win. Anyway, I gotta get rocking and rolling. Uzi, I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for the audience for tuning in. TJ the Will Deal signing off with UZI Options. Follow him at Jim Trainer. Actually, you just put at UZI Options and he'll come up on Twitter. He's a real good follow. As always, may your sky stay blue, stocks green. Peace out. God bless you guys.
Peace out, everybody. Have a good day. Take care, TJ.
Take care, brother. Appreciate you.